Self-awareness seems maybe like a small concept, but in the bigger picture, it's actually going to direct the entire destiny of your life. How you're able to understand and relate to yourself will make or break the patterns, and patterns are how your reality and life actually turn out. So, and if anyone has any questions at any point, feel free to drop them in the chat as well. So let's see. Now let's talk about what self-awareness really is, like the actual definition of it. So self-awareness is your ability to monitor your inner world, as well as to monitor how you're showing up in the external world to other people. Self-awareness is a temporary consciousness of self. So I say temporary because you're not going to be able to live your life constantly self-aware, because you're actually the person who is out living your life. You're going to have your human experience. You don't have to be analyzing and observing every single step of the way. So it's time that you purposely take to be like, okay, I'm stepping back and observing my life. Let's see. Self-awareness is also the first step to self-mastery, which includes self-love, and self-awareness is how you create a self-concept. So let's see where I put this. There's this was like the biggest surprise to me. The biggest surprise to me when I was researching all this and really going in to find scientific examples behind my own observations was that being introspective does not necessarily mean that you're self-aware and using self-awareness in a productive way. That kind of blew my mind until I thought about it further. Self-reflection, if you're doing self-reflection and you start to get trapped in these negative thought loops, and that's just kind of where it goes. Like you're observing yourself and you're like, oh, I found this insecurity, I found this wound, I found this. And then you're like, okay, now I have a bunch of shit piled up against me. What do I do with it? That's not productive self-awareness. And the strategies we go through today are going to help you know how to do it productively. One of my lights just went off. Hopefully the other one doesn't go off. They're new, so we'll see. Okay, so hold on, let me just find my notes where this one is. So so there's two versions of self-awareness. There's two versions of self-awareness. There's an inner awareness, and this is how clearly we see our values, our passions, our aspirations, our reactions, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, strengths, weaknesses, how we fit with our environment, and our impact on others. That's all inner awareness. And then there's an external awareness. And this is understanding how people view us. This is our ability to have empathy. This is being able to take on a perspective that's not ours. And external awareness is one of the #1 tools for being an effective leader. It's one of the skills you really need to have. And that's being a leader of a team, a business, or even your household. So if you have a low external self-awareness, but a high internal self-awareness, this looks like the person who's introspective, but maybe gets stuck once they get the awareness. They kind of can't navigate further from there. If you're someone with a high external self-awareness, but a low internal one, those are people who tend to have the people-pleasing tendencies, because you're more focused on the experience of the other person and put your experience maybe lower than that, or maybe not aware of how urgent your experience is. When you have low external awareness and low internal self-awareness, This is when you just feel utterly confused and clueless. And you're like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what the world is. When you have a high internal and a high external self-awareness, this is when you know who you are, you know what you want, and then you know how to go and get it out in the real world. So the techniques I'm going to give you today are supposed to help build both the internal and the external, but it's mostly for the internal because that's the best place to start. And then I'll do another masterclass for the other strategies that are more externally based. So again, if anyone has any questions, we had more people pop on, feel free to put it in the comments. So we're going to get into the 7 strategies next, but the barriers to self-awareness. This is what will block you from real self-awareness. A lack of mindfulness, not making time to do any of this, not making time to tune in with yourself, cognitive biases. We don't have time to get into those, but if you want to write down and then later Google common cognitive biases, this is a list that I will frequently look at. One of them, for example, is black and white thinking, all or nothing kind of thinking. Cognitive bias is also closely related to the narratives that we have so deeply attached to that it's our first reaction. So a cognitive bias, if you automatically go and choose that instead of deeply tuning in and analyzing, that's going to stop you from real self-awareness. Another barrier to self-awareness is being unwilling to get or accept feedback from yourself or from others. Okay, so if those are the barriers, how do we actually get to self-awareness? So strategy number one is learning how to step into the mode of the observer, being able to become the observer. So I have an analogy for this. Maybe it's not an analogy, maybe it's a metaphor or something. It's something that helps me really picture this in my head. So I like to pretend that my whole life is a film production and I am the star of the movie. Everyone's the star of their own movie. Now, I'm sure we've heard about that before, like you're the star of the movie, but you're also the director. When you're the star, it means you're out living your life. You are having the experience. You are in it. The camera's rolling. Action is taking place. But then when it's time to cut, you step back into the director mode. The director is the observer. The director knows the behind the scenes. They know they are having this bird's eye perspective of what's going on. And they want to give you the best direction possible. So when you're the star on stage, you're taking the story in the right direction. You're playing things the way you want to. So that's how I observe it. I'm like, okay, the cameras are cut and I'm stepping back into my director mode. And so my director self and my star self can have a conversation and be like, what's going on? How are we changing things? Where's this scene going? Where is this direction going? So if you like that, you can visualize that, or you can come up with another way to visualize that you're stepping outside yourself to get into an observational mode. Now, what's crucial about this observational mode is that it needs to be non-judgmental. It's an observer, so it's seeing the details, it's analyzing everything present, but it's not attaching immediate judgment to anything. And that's the most important part. It's not attaching judgment and it's not attaching immediate narratives. That's another crucial part, because your immediate narrative is probably going to be one of those cognitive biases, or it's going to be a limiting belief, or it's just some automatic response. So you want to learn how to move past the judgments, move past the stories, and like a scientist, truly collect all of the data. truly analyze everything that's going on and make a plan from there. So the tool that can help you do this is, where did I put it? It's mirror magic. Talking to yourself in the mirror is an immediate way that you can turn on third-party observational mode. Have you ever had the experience where there's something you're thinking in your head, and every time you think it, you're like, oh, that's true, that's true, that's true. And then the second you say it out loud to a friend or a therapist, you hear yourself say it and you're suddenly like, oh, that's not true. That's kind of stupid. Have you ever had that experience? I know I have definitely had that experience. So instead of having an actual person, you get your mirror and you say that thought that's in your head that seems so real, and you say it to the mirror. And when you do, this magic happens where you will notice that this other part of you is like, responds. And you either resonate like, oh, that's true, and then emotions come, or you're like, oh, that's not true. I just said it, I just released it, and now this thought is no longer looping in my head. So I like to use the mirror because you can have full conversations with yourself. Later in these strategies, you'll find out that other people come into play. But if you can make yourself your own like feedback system, that's extraordinarily powerful, to talk to yourself through the mirror. And I even call it like a little mini coaching or therapy session, because you're not, maybe sometimes you want to, but you're not going into it to be like, oh, I have to pep talk myself into something positive. You go and you meet yourself at the mirror. You meet your true self at the mirror and you say, hey, how are you feeling? And then you actually respond with how you're really feeling. And then you can say, what are the thoughts you're having right now? Tell me all of the thoughts. And then you say them all out loud. And you watch how your third-party observational mode that's been turned on responds to you. So this is one of my favorite strategies, and I highly recommend implementing it. Observer mode just in general, but if you can match observer mode with the mirror, very potent magic happens. So in the comments, Lanesha said, can you please say the definition of the star again? So the star is you. It's you in action, living your life. The director is you when you're stepping back for reflection and self-awareness and doing your inner work on yourself. And together they're like, hey, what's the plan? How do we make this your best life possible? Are you navigating in the right direction with the behaviors and actions that you're doing on screen? So another way to be in the observer mode, another way that self-reflection doesn't necessarily equal self-awareness, like one of the disconnects. So when we're trying to talk to ourselves, it's really common to be like, self, why are you crying right now? Why are you acting so crazy right now? Why are you nervous? And we ask why. Now, when I'm actually in an emotional place and I say, why are you doing this to myself? I want to answer immediately. So I tend to answer with one of those cognitive biases or with a limiting belief, or I pull an old narrative out of the hat. It's like, oh, I woke up crying today and I'm anxious. Why? Oh, it must be because of this. Let me pull out these old wounds. Oh my God, it's all of this. And that turns into a spiral, because I'm sure you guys have had a similar experience where it's like, I don't know why I'm feeling this way, so I'm going to pull out a reason. And then now this reason is going to grow and grow and grow. So instead of asking why, because when you ask yourself why, it's just super easy to tip into unproductive negative spiral, unproductive negative narrative. Instead, we're going to ask what. So I'm freaking out. And I say, instead of why are you freaking out, what do you need right now? What do your emotions need you to do for yourself right now? What do you need to do? When you ask the what, it implies that you're looking for a future-oriented solution. That instead of looking for the reasons, you're looking for the solution. Let's see. I thought I wrote more examples of the what. Maybe I did over here. Yeah, instead of saying, why do I feel terrible? What in this situation is making me feel terrible? And what can I do about it? Why did my friend or client say this about me? What are the steps I need to take in the future to get a different reaction or do a different job? See how one can spiral off, but the other is solution oriented? So when you're in your observational mode, you're looking for solutions and you're looking for the path forward, and you're not judging yourself. Because in that initial scenario we opened this class with, I know not everyone is here, but that was an example of how your emotions can hijack your behavior. And in this life, you don't want to eliminate those emotions. Like, that's kind of the fun part, is that there's emotions, but you don't want your emotions to get so intense that they hijack your behavior and then turn into patterns that hijack your destiny. So self-awareness used smartly stops that from happening. It's like, okay, I'm going to choose how I want to react instead. I'm going to choose what I'm going to do instead. Okay, so strategy 1, being in the observer mode, using the what question, and using the mirror. So strategy 2 is, I could have come up with a cute little name for this, but I didn't. So if anyone wants to come up with a, like a cool acronym or something and share it with the group, that would be great. But it's an environment scan, a body scan, an emotional scan, and a thoughts scan. So on the regular, and this is kind of stepping into observer mode, and I like to literally picture that I'm a little, like, that I have a little robot that's literally like scanning everything. Like, I love to visualize. So I'll sit there and I'll be like, okay, I'm stepping into director mode. I'm stepping into observer mode, scanning environment, what's around me. Okay, scanning body. Okay, scanning emotions. Okay, scanning my thoughts. And what I do for the scan, sounds, the more you say a word, the more it like doesn't sound like a real word. Okay, so doing this regularly, I scan. That's so funny, Julie. All-purpose scan. Yeah, perfect. If you start to consciously add this to your life, you start to pick up on clues. You start to learn more about yourself. So at a certain point, it's like, okay, what do my surroundings look like when I'm at my best self? How does my body feel when I'm at my best self? How are my emotions feeling when I'm at my best self? And how are my thought qualities when I'm at my best self? And then all those same questions, but for when you're not feeling like yourself. So for example, when I'm not feeling like myself, my environment tends to look like a very dark room with the blinds down on a sunny day. It looks like clothes piled up on the ground. It looks like a dusty altar. It looks like food and trash, kind of just everywhere. So I know when my environment looks like that, that's a signal. That's a big, loud signal. And that might sound obvious, but there's truly moments where I'm going, I'm being the star, I'm living my life, and I'll be like, suddenly like, I'm so stressed out. And then I'll look around and I'll be like, oh, my environment has looked like this for 2 days. I've had 2 days worth of clues and signals that I might be starting to lose myself. I need to pay attention. And then you can get on it quicker before it spirals into something where it's so loud and so detrimental. You know how in life there's like these highs and lows? You don't have to get to the low just to hear the message. You can start to hear the message on the way down or on the way up and be like, okay, I know enough about myself that I know these are signals and these are signs. So not just your personal space, but also environmental scans of the places you are in, because that's how you can check, like, one, am I in a good place for myself? And two, are there triggers around and how do I prepare for that? Like if I go into an environment and I can see that there are a lot of, there's a lot of noise, or there's a lot of people, or there's a lot of movement, I might be entering that place, that physical place, in a really good internal place for myself. But I'll walk in and I know those are some of my triggers. So I'm going to be extra careful and I'm going to do my right tools and actions for myself while I'm in this environmental space. Doing a body scan. When you're doing a body scan, you can see if you're holding tension anywhere. Let's imagine you're out at coffee with a friend and you start to do a body scan and you notice like all your muscles are clenched while you're like casually sitting there listening to them talk. In the moment, you're the star, so you got to keep doing the conversation. But later that day, you can go home and be like, I noticed my whole body was clenched talking to this friend. And then you can ask yourself, is it the subject matter we were talking about? Or was it my friend? And you can make better decisions from there, from the evidence that you're collecting, if that's a friend you want to be with, or a conversation you want to have, or maybe even just an environmental space you want to be in. Because maybe it was, just the environment you were in, which you would have also scanned and analyzed. And these are, the more you tune into the subtle signals, the quicker you can adjust your behaviors and adjust what you're doing. So things don't have to escalate to be really big. You can be sitting there and be like, oh, I'm clenching my jaw. I'm going to release my jaw. And what adjustments can I make right now? What am I doing that's making me so tense right now? And adjust from there. When you're doing an emotional scan, just feeling the quality of your emotions. I heard something today. Teal Swan was giving a talk today where she said there was a point in her life where she was really analyzing the difference between unhappy people, the difference between people who hated themselves and the people that loved themselves. And she said through all her research, the people who love themselves were the people that put their feelings first. It was the people that prioritized their own emotions. So getting comfortable with scanning and feeling, what's my emotional quality right now? What emotions are truly coming up for me? And what do I do about those emotions? Not how do I get rid of them? Why am I having them? What do I do about it? Since I'm a coach, a lot of people ask about morning routines. And I actually have told all my clients, make multiple routines. Wake up, an emotional scan, and depending on your emotional quality that day, your routine could be any of the 5 different things that you come up with. We're all women on this call. Women don't work in these 24-hour cycles like men do. We're not the sun. We work on moon cycles. So our energy and our emotions and everything changes every 28 to 30 days. So on day 2, you might feel one way and have one routine. And on day 14, you're going to have a bunch of energy and do your high energy routine. And on another one, you're going to be low energy and need to do your low energy routine. So scanning your emotions and then moving from there. And then there's the thought scan, the quality of your thoughts, picking up on the thoughts you're having before they catapult you into a whole set of behaviors or something. So I'll notice my thoughts before I go into like a really bad day or a depressive day. I'll hear it in my head first. I'll hear stuff that sounds very victim or very not confident or like self-deprecating. My thoughts will have that quality to them. Or sometimes it's projected on other people, and my quality of my thoughts will be very judgmental. Since I'm self-aware, I'll catch that and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I need to do something. I need to tune in with myself. I need to discover what I can do about these thoughts that I'm having before it snowballs. And I can also, you know how I said you can tell when you're starting to go on a down swing? You can notice when you're going on an upswing too. Let's say you've had a depressive episode for a few days, and then you start to notice the quality of your thoughts changing to hopeful thoughts about the future or loving thoughts about people in your life, or even like happy song lyrics. I'll catch that and I'll be like, good job, girl. You're on your upswing. Tomorrow, you're going to be kind of back to your normal state. So strategy number 2 is the scan. Scanning all of the things, learning how to regularly scan. I gave you 4, so I'd recommend picking one of those. And every day, taking a moment to do one of those scans and just seeing what data you collect when you do that. That leads us to number 3, which is journaling. Journaling specifically to process and record your thoughts that you're having on a regular basis, and tracking your moods that you're having every day, and tracking your patterns and tracking your dreams. At first, these are just notes that the director is taking. You're just going to put it in your notebook like you're a scientist analyzing an animal. It's like, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. You don't have to get super invested in it. You're just recording. And then once a certain amount of time has happened, a month or 2 or 3 months, you're going to go back and analyze all of that and look for patterns. And you're going to be able to see like, oh, this pattern is emerging. This is what my monthly energetic levels look like, or this is what my monthly emotional levels look like. And from there, there's so much you can do with that data. You can schedule your life differently because you just know these are when I have low energy. This is when I have high energy or emotional days. You can also use it as a foundation of support. And a possibly easy one that we can all relate to. You know, when one day you just start like crying and eating ice cream and freaking out, and then like 3 days later your period happens and you're like, oh, it makes sense now. So that's you using self-awareness, a little delayed, but if you were to just understand yourself so deeply and track these things, then on that day where you start kind of crying, you can be like, okay, analyzing, okay, this is normal. Today I'm going to be emotional and it's no big deal. And I don't have to make narratives about it. And I don't have to react to get other people to validate this reality. I just know today's one of my emotional days. And then you pull out your emotional day routine and you care for yourself super deeply on that day, and it's no big deal. Life's not about like smoothing out all the bad stuff, so you're just like super happy and everything's the same. It's about learning how to make everything as easy as possible. That's my opinion of it. Because we're going to have depressive days, we're going to have emotional days, we're going to have shit days, but it's how we approach them and smooth over those edges. It makes it easier. That way, when a real emergency happens in our life, we can just focus, like go full throttle on the real emergencies and like not make the small things into full emergencies. Like that example I had in the very beginning about getting triggered at an event and then turning it into a fight with your significant other. We don't need to make, there's a saying, it's like mountains out of molehills. The more self-awareness you have, the more you can smooth over the edges on stuff that doesn't have to be a big deal. So yeah, journaling and then observing it. One way you can be an observer to your journal is I save all my journals and then I like to get them out and I literally will pretend that I'm a stranger who found it and I'll read it and I'll pretend I'm reading about somebody else. And that will give me a lot of new data too to work with. So strategy number 4 is to write a personal manifesto that has your core beliefs, values, and visions for your life. And when you make this manifesto, I like to update mine every 3 to 6 months, or when there's like a significant cosmic event or a significant shift in who I am. So you write this all out. You take the time out of your day, out of your life to truly write this manifesto and get very clear with yourself. What are you prioritizing? What do you value most? What beliefs do you actually want to live your life by? Because if we're going back to the star and the director needs to give directions to your star so you can navigate towards what you really want. And you don't just get bounced between life events or other people's ideas or opinions. So you're going to write your manifesto, and then you're going to come up with some mantras that just really boil down some of the key points of this manifesto. And those are the mantras that you're going to remind yourself of every day to keep yourself on track. And what this is helpful for is when you are in an emotional place and having an emotional reaction, that's kind of that angel I talked about in the beginning that's going to tap you on your shoulder and be like, hey, hold on a minute. Are you doing behaviors and actions that are going to really take you off track right now? Let's think of an example. If anyone wants to drop in one of their values or beliefs or goals into the comment section, we'll come up with a mantra and an example for it. So if anyone has one, what's something that you value? What is a top priority within your life? Let's see, do I have a pen? Divine masculine and divine feminine balance within and peace within. Okay, let's go with peace within. So a mantra for that can be, a mantra for the peace within can be, I choose peace over chaos. I choose peace over chaos. I choose peace over chaos. I always repeat 3 times because I'm trying to really like make it a repetitive thought, something that can easily come up when I need it most. So going back to that example of the night of the party, let's say you get triggered, you're feeling emotional, you're starting to yell at your significant other, and it starts to get chaotic. You know, because you guys, the voices are raised, you're moving around frantically. It's the opposite of peace. And if you're telling yourself every day, peace over chaos, that you value peace over chaos, that's going to kind of start to be a trigger. When the chaos starts to happen, your mantra will come up in your brain and you'll be like, that will be your stop sign. It'll be like, oh, something's happening here. And then you get to choose, okay, do I want to dive deeper into this chaos by yelling this thing I want to yell? Or am I going to walk into the other room and do one of my techniques for peace? And it sounds simple, but when you're really in those hard moments, it's so helpful to have that voice of reason come through the voice of reason being your own, that you've programmed in, that you've chosen. You know, when you're like truly in yourself and you feel really good and you just feel so clear. And then there's other times in your life where like like I was really emotional the other day on a hike, and my boyfriend was like, "Isn't this beautiful?" And I was like, "It's ugly. It can all burn down." And it's like, that's not who you really are. But you get in those modes, you get in those moods. And so it's important when you're in your good mood, when you're with yourself, when you're aligned with yourself, to make these little mantras that you can carry around. It's the playable direction that the director is giving the star. So when the star is on their scene, they can hear that voice and be like, peace over chaos, peace over chaos. Okay, I'm not playing this scene in the direction the story is supposed to be going, because I'm moving towards chaos and I'm not moving towards peace right now. So yeah, number 4 is personal manifesto with mantras to remind you. Emma says, I find I repeat, I am, love, strong, peace, integrity, etc. mantras while walking. Yes, while walking and just repeating those mantras, that's a brilliant way of programming them in, because your thoughts will become more automatic. The more you consciously think them, the more they'll automatically play in your head. I thought that wasn't true until it started to become true for me. I'll walk around my house now, and instead of like really mean self-talk, I'll hear like, you're awesome, you're the best, you're wonderful. Like, and it's like, wow, thanks, self. It's like, I'd much rather be hearing that on loop than anything else. Okay, so number 5 is get feedback. We talked about self-feedback with a mirror. You can also do self-feedback with a tarot deck, which we will get into deeper. I'm going to have a workshop on how to read tarot for yourself. But just to put it briefly, you don't even have to really know the tarot cards really well. You don't have to think you're a tarot reader. It's more about pulling the card, looking at the image on that card, and paying attention to the natural reaction you have to it, and seeing what you learn from that feedback. An example of one, about 6 years ago, I was in a tarot class and they had us do this exercise. And so I pulled the Lover's card, and they were like, what's your reaction to it? And I said, this is scary. I was like, Lover's card, scary. And everyone was like, whoa, okay, you just revealed a lot about yourself. And I thought the same. I was like, wow, I just revealed a lot. Like, I just reacted as this is a scary card. So it teaches you a lot, your reaction to something. Another one with tarot, if you are more versed in it, or if you take the time to have a book and like read the description and really dive into the tarot reading with yourself, it can be the thing that puts a hand up and says, hold on, girl, like you're going into your old narratives, or hold on there, this is maybe not rational. An example of that is, I can't even remember what happened, but I was feeling really emotional with my boyfriend, and I had him take me home so I could tune into myself and do my self-care, because that's what I really, really needed. And when I got home, I was in that super emotional, vulnerable place. And I started to think of my old limiting beliefs and my old narratives, which are, you're weird and no one will love you, you're fucking up all your romantic relationships. And so I started to spiral into this narrative about, I left his house, which means we're going to break up. Like, you know how stuff is like here and then you jump to the worst conclusion ever. So that's where I was jumping that night. But my self-awareness angel was like, honey, get in the director's seat. Come on, come on, pull some tarot cards. And so I asked the tarot cards, what's going on in my relationship right now? And I pull all of the best love cards. I pull the Lover's card. I pull Queen of Wands reversed, which means out of my power. I was out of my power, but then I had all these stable love cards around me. And so immediately that stopped my spiral, because I was like, oh, I trust the tarot cards, and the feedback that they're giving me is that everything's okay and I'm just out of my power. And I was able to come back to that truth and be like, yeah, and that's why I came home in the first place, to get back in my power. And then it was all uphill from there. I was able to not sink into the hole and use self-awareness to climb up. Um, Using tarot as an external feedback is excellent. But that's still just your own consciousness and spirit. But like, you know, you've got your own limits on it. So it is helpful to also get feedback from a therapist or a coach or a friend. Just literally having someone give their unemotional, unbiased third perspective of your situation and of your life. I know a big way I grew with self-awareness was through a lot of therapy and a lot of coaching and a lot of self-tarot readings. So you can use all of those different feedback methods to grow your self-awareness. Okay, so number 6. This one is so fun and so easy to implement in your life. Notice what characters, movies, songs, shows, media, and art that you are identifying with. Pay attention to what of those things you are identifying yourself with. And then step into your director mode and ask why. What are the emotions, or what are the qualities, or what are the characteristics? What is it about that movie, that song, that art piece, that character that is resonating deeply with you, that you are identifying with? When I was at the very beginning of my emotion or my spiritual journey 6 years ago or 5 years ago at this point, Star Wars one of the new Star Wars trilogies had come out, and Kylo Ren was the character. And Kylo Ren is this very emotional, emo, angry, like outburst kind of guy. I saw him on the screen and I was like, oh, swoon. I love him. I understand him. Like, Kylo Ren is my dude. And I know I did not use self-awareness to realize, oh yeah, I'm in a moody, emotional, reactive, I'm the victim kind of place in my life. Since then, I've learned. So now, if I go and watch that movie, I'm no longer in that stage of my life. I'm no longer the victim. I'm not angry. I'm not emo. So I watch his character on the screen and I'm like, what did aside from his obvious looks, what was I attracted to? What was I resonating with? Like, and then there's a new character that I'm like, oh, what about that guy? Because now he embodies, I think his name is Poe or something. He's this other character in the movie, and he embodies leadership, integrity, doing the right thing. So just from one movie, I can identify how I used to feel and how I feel now. And you can do this all the time with the songs that you're listening to and the stuff that you're watching. I highly recommend going back and looking at old things that you used to really identify with and see what happens. See if an old dormant part of yourself comes up and is like, yeah, let's party. Or if you're like, oh, that part of me is resolved. Like, that's so old. I feel so disconnected from that thing. I'll give you another example. Back before I healed, my favorite movie of all time was called The Wall. And I thought it was work of art genius. I literally made it my identity. I would wear like the t-shirt. I would tell people to watch this movie, all of that. And then I didn't watch it for the past 5 years when I was on my spiritual journey. And then my boyfriend was like, show me your favorite movies. And I pulled it out because in my head, it was still on the list. So we turn it on and watch it. I'm a completely different person. I've gone through this epic transformation of self. We put the movie on and I'm horrified. I was like, this is really, really, really dark and depressing and violent. And I don't like watching it. And I don't ever want to watch this again in my life. I respect it, but oh my God, how did I watch that constantly? How did I identify with it? How did this feel comforting to me? And it's because back then in my life, I was comfortable with chaos and violence and depression. It was the energy that matched what my reality was like. So when I watched it, it was very comforting. It was affirming. So look in your life now. What are you always tuning into? What is the art that's moving you and identifying with you? And then analyze deeper why, because you're going to get a lot of evidence and data about yourself and about where you're at. And then it will always be a place marker that you can use. You can always go back to that media and say, and feel, do I resonate or not with this? Okay, so number 7. Oh, wait, actually, I want to read this comment first by Linesha. She says, I love Avatar, and at the time, I didn't realize it, but it was because of the collective consciousness of the Na'vi people and their connection to one another and their environment, world, and all the life in it. Yes, I relate to that experience too. I remember seeing that movie, and that was back when I was in the depressive, dark phase. And that movie felt so unfamiliar, but I loved it. I wanted to move towards whatever I was resonating and identifying with in that movie. So if I had been more self-aware at the time, I could have analyzed it and figured out collective consciousness, being in tune with the environment. I would have noticed that those are the real core values that are calling me in. Okay, so number 7, strategy number 7, using people as your mirror. This is different than feedback, because feedback is when you actually verbalize like, hey, I need feedback on my life. But using people as a mirror is a more sneaky, maybe not sneaky, but it's a more subtle with yourself technique. So this one is better to start as a journaling exercise. And then when you start to get good at it, you'll be able to do it in real time when you're around people. And that's going to help you make different decisions and use your behavior differently. So for a journal, list out the people that you admire. List out the people that you look up to. And then list all of the things that you specifically admire about that person, that you specifically like about that person. And then you're going to really, really step back into that director observer mode and look at that list of the qualities and ask yourself, what of these qualities do I possess? What of these qualities do I want to express more myself? You're guaranteed to find nuggets of gold in that. And then on the flip side, just as informational, if not more, write a list of all the people that you hate or that you don't like and don't resonate with. And then write down what specifically you don't like about them or that you hate about them. All of those qualities. And then again, step into that observer mode and really, without judgment, without creating narratives, be like, what of these qualities do I have and that I possess? And you'll definitely uncover a few shadow aspects of yourself. Let's see. The thing I love about using people as a mirror is it allows you to kind of step into this mode where you're starting to see their purpose in your life. So instead of feeling like you're a victim to circumstance and it's like, oh, I had to deal with this really annoying person today, you can start to see more of the purpose of it. Like, oh, there was this really annoying person on the bus, and I learned this thing about myself. I thought they were talking too loud. So where in me do I have a wound that I think I'm talking too loud? And so instead of it being an annoying thing, it's a thing that you learn from. And it just helps you navigate the world in a different way. Everything becomes purposeful rather than like random events. So to recap, and feel free to drop any comments, any questions. To recap on the 7 strategies of self-awareness: stepping into observer mode, which you can use the mirror, and an observational person asks what instead of why. Not why did this happen, but what can I do now that this has happened? Number 2, implementing a daily regular scan of the environment, quality of the environment, scan of the quality of your thoughts, quality of how your body is feeling, your emotions. 3, journaling, keeping track of yourself, like you're a scientist keeping track of an animal, just writing down all the records, all the recordings, and regularly looking through and seeing what you can learn about what you've written. Number 4, writing a manifesto and creating mantras from that can keep you on track every day with the real priorities that you want to take, the real direction you want to take in your life. Because that's how you can be self-aware if you're doing it or not. Number 5, having a source of feedback. That can be a coach, a therapist, a tarot deck. Number 6, noticing what you're identifying with in media, art, TV. And then 7, noticing how you're reacting to people, negatively or positively, and what that actually reveals about yourself. So those are the 7 strategies for self-awareness. Again, actually, I don't know if I said this or not, but the more self-aware you are, the more you can take an active role in creating your concept of self, of actually navigating down the path towards what you truly want, and to smooth over just the parts of life that could get a little more chaotic and rough, just because you know how you're intentionally navigating through it. People with self-awareness tend to have higher income, more solid relationships, and more life satisfaction. Like the first example explained, you take a scenario and without self-awareness, it could literally break the relationship because of a pattern of bad behavior. Or you can grow deeper with your partner because you took the time to understand yourself and who you really are and what makes you really tick. So the room is now open for any questions or any comments. So if anyone has a question on self-awareness, you have the stage. Thank you too to everyone who showed up as well. This has been really fun. You can unmute your mic or you can comment in the comment section. Lanesha says, this was really great. Thank you. Self-awareness is such a big deal. If you start to pay attention to it today, I highly recommend picking one of these 7 strategies that you don't do right now and start to do it every single day. And you'll notice after about 30 days, it's going to become more automatic. And then you can add on another strategy. Over time, you're going to be so in tune with yourself and so aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it that you just feel like you're literally always winning. Because even when you have a bad moment, you're like, oh, I'm self-aware enough to know why I'm having a bad moment and how to deal with it effectively. I know it was the biggest life changer for me because life used to be this really big roller coaster of stuff always happening and I was always reacting. And self-awareness gave me the ability to step back and respond to my life and direct my life in the way I wanted it to go, rather than be directed by stuff that I wasn't understanding, like old limiting beliefs or other people's opinions and stuff like that. Julie says, I'm over here sobbing over a huge abandonment trigger, not lashing out or reacting, slowing down and letting that director chat with me. Yes, that is the perfect way to do it. We never want to repress our emotions. You want to feel your emotions full throttle and give it that beautiful space of, I'm a director talking to the star of myself. It's like, okay, you're sobbing right now. What do you need as you're sobbing right now? What do you need to express? What is being unheard? What do you need to feel better? What can we do moving forward differently in this situation? Rather than, why am I always abandoned? Why? Victim, down, spiral. Up. What can I do? How can I help myself? And being gentle about it. And like she said, not reacting. Not being like, oh my God, I feel bad, so I'm gonna send this long message that I'll regret in 20 minutes. Or like, there's a lot of stuff people can do. Negative coping mechanisms, behaviors that once you do them, you can't undo them. So yes, stepping back, slowing down, honoring the feeling, being with yourself, creating a new game plan forward. Okay, so it looks like we don't have any questions. If a question comes to you later, just pop it in the membership. Lanesha says, the manifesto and the star director seems like it will give me an additional perspective. Yeah. I really, really love both of those. With the star and the director, I ask myself, am I giving myself playable directions? So if my manifesto says my priority is my family, and then my star never prioritizes the family, there's a disconnect. Or if the manifesto says, you have to be a perfect, amazing, perfect person, and then the star is like, that's not playable. How do I do that? What are you talking about? So the director has to be like, okay, yeah, what do I consider that's perfect? What do I consider that's this? How do I consider the reality of being a human, that you can't be perfect? And then the star is like, okay, maybe I can work with some of these different answers. The manifesto is your core values and your vision for your life. There's another way to think of it, which might be triggering to some people depending on where you're at, but you can also write the manifesto as if it's a eulogy, that thing that people talk about you when you've died. So you can write it from that perspective too, where it's like, this is the life she lived. This is how she showed up for people. This is how we think of her. Or the manifesto can be written more from a present perspective, where it's like, this is the person I want to be. This is how I want to choose to show up in the world. In an ideal situation, I would choose this priority over this priority. Like, do you want love and family or money and success? Which one do you actually value the most? Which one are you putting on the manifesto? And then, are you actually acting in accordance to that in your everyday life? Is your star actually playing out those choices? Are you, in your everyday life, actually choosing family over work? Or do you always go to work meetings instead? Yes, the director's star definitely keeps you on track with living up to that manifesto. That's why it's helpful to have the mantras. The mantras are kind of like the playable direction that the director gives the star. So that's why it's like, you choose peace over chaos. And then the star is like, okay, time to go out, and the scene, action's playing. There's a peaceful lake over there, or there's a chaotic rock show. Which one do I want to go to? That's kind of a silly example. Truly in the moment, you can pick whatever your heart desires. Like, you can have a peaceful life and go to rock shows, but it's just what came out first. Okay, Emma, number 6 resonates. Watched a film the other day I used to love, Into the Wild. Yeah, that's a good one. And it just didn't give me the feels it used to. Looking forward to exploring that one more and learning. So I haven't watched Into the Wild in quite a while, and I think I'm mixing it up with another movie. But I'm pretty sure it, at its core, is a maybe not coming of age, but like a coming into self kind of movie. And so maybe you, Emma, have moved on from that part of your life because you're like, yeah, I figured that out. And now I'm living the part of my life where this is the way I'm being. Like, I'm not lost and looking for something. I know what I'm doing and I'm doing this purposefully. Let's see. The guy ditches society and ends up in Alaska. Oh, yeah. Just reading that one line, I can feel like if you're in a place in your life where you want to, when you want to cut everything off and cut and run and like be alone, that movie would probably feel really good to watch. But if you're at a different part of your life, and Emma, I know right now you're in this membership and you're in another membership, you're very socially active right now. So the idea of cutting everyone off and going to Alaska, it's like, yeah, that doesn't resonate. Let me watch a movie about all the women doing a drum circle and like dancing together. That's probably going to resonate a lot more with where you really are. Lanesha says, literally today was the last day at my job. That was very low vibrational. And then boom, the alert for this class popped up. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I think you missed some of the beginnings, so the replay will be available. Okay, so let me just make sure I didn't leave out any nuggets of gold. Nuggles. Okay. Okay, so self-awareness goes under the category of emotional intelligence. There's a lot more strategies for self-awareness, and this was going to build into self-management. We've kind of talked about that technically, but basically this subject is huge. So we will do more classes on the subject. We'll dive even deeper into it because this is the core of how you can actually understand yourself, love yourself, accept yourself, transform yourself, and master yourself. So thank you so much for coming today. I'll post the replay. Let me know if you have questions later today or anytime. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. Our next event, while I have you guys, let me just see. It's going to be a Q&A. So that's going to be really fun. That's where we can interact. I'm going to pull cards. I'm going to coach you guys. It'll be like hot seat style. And that will be on Thursday, May 20th at 11 a.m. So I hope I see you guys all there. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye, everybody.